An orchestra, when in harmony, creates beautiful melody. Every tune coming from each individual musician and their instruments is a pleasure to hear when they're synchronized. When out of sync, however, that's a different story. That's exactly how our bodies are. An intricate system consisting of trillions of cells, each cell performing its unique function to appropriately regulate your hunger, sleep, energy levels, and even help you learn and focus right now. When these trillions of cells are not coordinated, you can imagine what happens. But what coordinates them? The circadian rhythm. Every cell in your body has a small biological clock running on a roughly 24-hour basis. This clock dictates the timing of the cell's activity so that the right things happen at the right time. But with trillions of cells in your body, each running on their own little clocks, it's not hard to imagine things can become a bit uncoordinated. In other words, this orchestra of musicians need a conductor, which is why we have a master clock, a structure located in our brains in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN for short. The SCN, being the master clock, communicates information about time to every cell in your body, beautifully aligning their activity in a coordinated manner, just like the conductor of an orchestra. So we can say that the circadian rhythm is our internal biological clock that regulates the activity of cells in terms of timing. This circadian rhythm can be broadly divided into two signals: the waking signal and the sleeping signal. These signals come in the form of two important hormones, namely cortisol and melatonin. Cortisol, a hormone released from your adrenal glands above your kidneys, tends to get a bad reputation for being a stress hormone, which, if it's excessive, is indeed not a good thing. However, in the morning, you actually want a pulse in cortisol, because this signals to the rest of the body that it's time to wake up, in turn helping it prepare for other processes in anticipation of the day to come. If you thought that melatonin was a hormone related to sleep, well, you're right. Melatonin, released from a small structure in your brain called the pineal gland, serves as a sleeping signal, letting the cells in your body know it's time to wind down for the day. These two hormones work together in a relatively complementary manner. In the morning, you have a spike in cortisol that then decreases as you approach late evening. In the evening, melatonin levels increase, that then taper off as daytime approaches. When this circadian rhythm is dysregulated, it can lead to less than ideal well-being. Negative effects on cardiovascular health, mental health, learning, metabolic health, cancer risk, inappropriately timed energy levels, such as being tired during the day and alert at night, and so on. When regulated, however, you get the gift of optimized well-being. The question that almost immediately always gets asked then is, how can I regulate my circadian rhythm? I mean, I understand how a healthy rhythm of these sleep-wake signals should look like, and I get that there are these vast benefits to my health. But how can I use this to my advantage? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's exactly what we're going to discover now. The circadian rhythm is an internal process that occurs naturally. However, it can be affected by external cues, such as food, caffeine, exercise, and so on. But there is one particular factor that has the biggest impact of all, and that is light. In other words, the primary way you can impact your circadian rhythm is through learning to interact with light in the way you are designed to. To do this, we first have to understand some underlying mechanisms of how exactly light affects the circadian rhythm. And then from this understanding, we can discern science-based strategies that are simple to implement in our daily lives, yet have a profound effect on your physiology. Let's start with the waking signal. In the morning, light enters your body through your eyes. A specialized set of cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, you don't have to remember their name if you don't want to, resides in your eyes, more particularly in the retinas. These specialized retinal cells recognize light from our environment and then convey this light information to the master clock, the SCN, who in turn relays this light information to every cell in your body, aligning their clocks. Remember how cortisol is a waking signal? Even if you were in complete darkness, this cortisol release would continue to occur naturally every day. However, it would occur later each day. In fact, a late shifted cortisol release is one of the key characteristics in anxiety disorders and depression. Viewing morning light, however, recalibrates the timing of this cortisol release, hence timing your wake-up signal optimally. Now, the amount and type of light is important for this. Those specialized retinal cells are looking for sunlight coming from an angle relatively low in the sky, because at this angle, the light contains a specific ratio of yellows and blues that signify the early time of day. So actually, viewing the sunrise is not only beautiful, but also beneficial, since viewing the sunrise is sending strong signals to your internal clock that the day is beginning, and in turn, synchronizing all the little clocks in every single one of your cells, resulting in a synchronized system where everything from hormone regulation to energy levels work together in a regulated rhythm. And the beauty is, it really is this simple. Yet you get this profound benefit. You don't have to view the sun just as it's crossing the horizon. As long as it's at a relatively low angle, so roughly before 8 a.m., maybe 9 a.m., it's good. Getting sunlight after the hours of 11 or 12 p.m. can also be good for you, but it won't do the trick in terms of calibrating your internal clock, since by then, the now overhead sunlight is a different quality. But what if it's cloudy outside? Well, sunlight still passes through cloud cover. So even on a cloudy day, that mixture of blue-yellow light will still signal to your clock. The next question that often pops up then is, how long? Well, that depends on the weather, but it's not as long as you think. On sunny days, just 5 to 10 minutes of being outside is enough. And on cloudier days, a little longer, for about 10 to 20 minutes. If it's extremely overcast, ideally it'd be 30 minutes, but for most days, the 10-minute mark should do. But it really has to be outside. Why? Because viewing sunlight through a glass window or your car windshield on your drive to work is around 50 times less effective than viewing sunlight directly, taking it much longer for the light to signal to your internal clock. Eyeglasses or contact lenses are completely fine, by the way, since these lenses are designed to focus the light directly onto your retinas, which is where these photosensitive cells reside. Even on a cloudy day, outside will always give you more light than all indoor lights combined could. This is because outside, light energy in the form of photons is scattered across the atmosphere. So just go outside, do whatever you want for those 10 minutes. Have your morning cup of tea, read your daily dose of news, walk your dog, go on a jog, stretch, meditate, have breakfast outside. It really doesn't matter. In fact, you don't even have to look at the sun for this to work. Even blind people, provided their eyes are still undamaged, can still calibrate their clock to light. This shows that we don't need to consciously perceive sunlight for this to work. It's a subconscious process occurring naturally. With all this, of course you want to be safe and use common sense. Don't go having a staring contest with a bright sun, you're going to lose, or with any bright light for that matter. Blink when you need to, and so on. If going outside isn't possible, you can use bright artificial lighting indoors. Cool white fluorescent lamps, for example, tend to generate lots of blue light, which can help wake you up. Which leads me to a small side note on blue light, actually. Blue light tends to get a bad reputation. It's not uncommon I see people go about their entire day wearing eyeglasses designed to filter out blue light, or have these blue light filters on their device screens, in the belief that by reducing blue light, they're helping their health and sleep. But actually, blue light can be good for you in the morning, because blue light wakes you up and makes you alert. So you don't need to filter out blue light from your device screens during the day, since it can actually be good for your circadian clock. When it isn't good, however, is during the night. Because at this point, we don't want to be sending wake-up signals to our body anymore. And this leads us to the sleeping signal. As the day progresses, the sun goes down, it becomes dark, and normally, we're not expected to receive lots of light. This is important because for a healthy circadian rhythm, you want melatonin, the sleeping signal, to be released in the late evening. And melatonin can only be released in darkness because light suppresses melatonin. However, nowadays, with all our indoor lighting and device screens, it's not uncommon we're getting light well into the late hours of the day, unnaturally. How many of us are guilty of this? Or this? Because of artificial lighting and device screens, we're getting light at times of day, or rather, times of night, when we're not meant to. And this disrupts your circadian rhythm. How though? In the morning, we had to actively go outside to make sure we got lots of sunlight so that it could signal to our internal clock. How then can mere indoor lighting, which has lesser photons than the sun, be enough to disrupt our clock at night? That has to do with how sensitive your retinas are to light. You see, in the morning, those specialized retinal cells we talked about earlier are low in sensitivity to light, meaning they need a lot of light to be activated. However, in the evening, the retinal sensitivity to light increases, meaning just a small amount of light is enough to activate them, hence sending the wrong signals to your master clock, the SCN, and in turn disrupting your circadian rhythm with melatonin suppression. Now, obviously it's not very practical to live life in full darkness after the hours of 8 p.m. Chances are you still need light for end-of-day activities before you hit the bed. Luckily, there are a few ways we can work around this, and the first hack I'm about to tell you might just surprise you, and that is viewing evening sunlight. Just like you want to view morning sunlight to help wake you up, viewing sunlight around sunset also helps. Because viewing evening sunlight, when it's at that low solar angle once again, turns down the retinal sensitivity to light, hence granting you more leeway in being able to view artificial light and maybe catch up on some late night shows without it disrupting your circadian rhythm as much. Now, obviously this isn't a green light to go ahead and bathe yourself in bright artificial lighting, of course. But there are some simple ways you can play around with artificial lighting to make your home more optimized for your circadian rhythm. Firstly, you can use red light. Unlike blue light, which wakes you up and makes you alert, red light does not have this effect and doesn't disrupt your rhythm as much. Hence, just using reddish, orangish, more warmer toned lighting can already go a long way. The other thing you can do is use lighting located in the lower field of your vision, such as floor lamps as opposed to overhead ceiling lamps. This is because those specialized retinal cells reside mostly in the lower half of your retina, meaning they pick up on light that, not coincidentally, comes from above. After all, they were designed to sense sunlight. So, using lower located lighting can also help. Last but not least, obviously, the dimmer, the better. Even red light, if too bright, will interfere with your melatonin suppression and hence your circadian rhythm. With all this, I want to remind you, it's not about being tied to a rigid schedule or getting things perfectly. Just like eating fast food once in a while isn't going to ruin your diet, a day of unnatural light exposure won't ruin your rhythm. Rather, it's what you do and eat on a regular basis, and likewise, how you interact with light on most days, that makes the difference. And having understood some of the underlying biological mechanisms behind why these strategies work, it empowers you to adapt them in a way that best suits your lifestyle. The circadian rhythm within you regulates the activity of the trillions of cells in your body in a synchronized manner, hence impacting many facets of your well-being. This internal clock uses external cues, particularly light, to be recalibrated every day. Light is a powerful influence, and by interacting with it in the way you are designed to, you can wield this power in your favor. May your orchestras produce beautiful symphonies. Thank you.